Hello students. So in this video we are going to discuss the topic anatomy of flowering plants. What is anatomy? Okay, the study of internal structure, internal structures, internal structures of organisms is called anatomy. Okay, in this we will discuss about different types of tissues, tissue systems, and the internal organization of these tissues and tissue systems in various parts of the plants, especially like roots, stems, and leaves. First, we will discuss about the tissues. And the study of tissues is called as histology. Study of tissues is called histology. And what is tissue? Tissue is group of similar or dissimilar cells with okay, similar origin and function. I hope you understanding. They may be similar in structure or dissimilar in structure, but the origin will be same and the function is also same. So that is what a tissue. And as we are talking about the tissues in plants, flowering plants, the tissues basically in plants are of two types. There are meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. This is based on whether they have the capacity to divide or not. So the cells which divide continuously, which retain the capacity of cell division throughout the life of the plant, and which will divide and contribute the new cells to the plant body and help in the growth of the plant body, are called meristematic tissues. And okay, the simplified term for that meristematic tissues is meristems. Now remember, these meristematic tissues, as they are helping in the plant body, the cells which they have added will become permanent tissues. So you should remember that all permanent tissues originate from meristematic tissues. Okay, and these permanent tissues are also further classified. That we will see later. And first, let us say the meristematic tissues are further classified based on two aspects. One is based on origin in the life of the plant, and the second one is position in the plant body. And based on origin, there are two types: primary meristems and secondary meristems. Okay, primary meristems are present right from the embryonal stage of the plant. So the embryonic meristem, okay, and remember this embryonic meristem which is present in the embryo while this embryo is growing into the plant. So this meristem will get confined to some places, and generally they will be located towards the tips of the root and tips of the stem. So the meristem now, which is migrated to the tips of this root and stem, are called as root apical meristem and shoot apical meristem. RAM and SAM. That is, RAM is what? Root apical meristem, and SAM is shoot apical meristem. They are actually derived from which one? Embryo only. So they are primary meristems. So embryonic meristem, okay, present in the embryo, but later when the plant is growing, they become what? Apical meristems. And not only these apical meristem, while they are producing new cells, some cells do not become permanent. They remain in between these permanent tissues. So they are called intercalary meristems. And some cells which retain that capacity of division but divide later, so which are present in between the xylem and phloem, that is called intrafascicular cambium or simply fascicular cambium. Intrafascicular cambium present in the vascular bundles of the stems. So these are all primary meristems. And the secondary meristems are formed as a result of dedifferentiation. Means what? The permanent cells once again become what? Meristematic. That is called dedifferentiation. And such meristems which are formed later in the life of the plant are called secondary meristems. So the secondary meristems include okay, examples: interfascicular cambium, and also cork cambium. And one more name is there for cork cambium. This is also called as phellogen. So this is based on what? Origin in the life of the plant. So in the life of the plant, the meristems that are present right from the embryonic stage are called primary meristems, and those that are formed during the growth of the plant at later stage while it is maturing. So the new tissues are formed which will increase the girth of the cylindrical organs of the plants like roots and stems are called secondary meristems. So this intrafascicular cambium, which is formed in between the vascular bundles in stems, is formed at the time of secondary growth. And the cork cambium is also formed at the time of secondary growth. So they are formed, they are not there from the beginning, they are formed later in the life of the plant. That's why they are called secondary. And now let us discuss about the meristems based on position. In the plant body, based on position, we can recognize three types of meristems. The meristems which are present at the tips of roots and stems are called apical meristems. Already, as I told you, RAM, SAM. That is, RAM is root apical meristem, and SAM is shoot apical meristem. These are apical meristems. We will discuss the details of these meristems later. And now let us say the intercalary meristems. So the meristems which are present in between the permanent tissues, okay, are called intercalary meristems, and the meristems that are present on the sides of the cylindrical organs, like what are those lateral meristems? The vascular cambium, cork cambium, And these lateral meristems are also called as cylindrical meristems. Cylindrical meristems. So now let us say the permanent tissues. The permanent tissues are classified into two types: simple permanent and complex permanent tissues. Simple permanent tissues, here I wrote what group of similar or dissimilar. So just remember, group of similar cells with common origin and function. Common with common origin and function. Okay, so this is the definition I just modified. This is a general definition for tissues, and now this is the definition where I have removed dissimilar. Okay, so if you remove this dissimilar word, then it becomes what? The definition for simple permanent tissue: group of similar cells with common origin and function. Then what about the complex permanent tissues? Group of dissimilar cells. Group of dissimilar cells with common origin and function. With common origin and function will become complex permanent tissues. And just remember, these simple permanent tissues are of three types: parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. Okay, parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma are simple permanent tissues. And complex permanent tissues include xylem and phloem. Xylem and phloem are complex permanent tissues. So this is the flow chart, and you just memorize this flow chart. Okay, now let us discuss the details of these meristematic tissues. So the meristematic tissues are also called as meristems, and this term meristems was coined by K. Nageli. K. Nageli. And these meristematic tissues are a group of immature cells which are in continuous state of division, are the cells that divide continuously throughout the life of the plant and help in the growth of the plant are called meristematic tissues. So don't forget that the growth in plants and growth in animals is different. The growth in plants is indefinite, whereas growth in animals is definite. So the plants will grow throughout their life, that is till the death of the plant. But the animal's growth will be stopped at after attaining certain age. So what might be the reason for behind it? The reason is the presence of meristematic tissues. So due to presence of these meristematic tissues, so the plants always grow throughout their life till they die. Okay, and that's why we defined the meristematic tissues like this: group of immature cells which are in continuous state of division, are the cells that divide continuously, are the cells that retain the capacity of cell division, are called meristematic tissues, and they contribute in the growth of plants. So they help in the growth of plants, and where you find them? Found in the growing regions of the plants. Okay, and what are the growing regions of the plants? Apices will grow continuously. Okay, the internodes will elongate. Okay, and not only that growth, you can see this girth also increases. So the girth, increase in the girth, or increase in the width occurs not in the flattened organs of the plants. So there are certain organs in plants which are which will show unlimited growth. So organs of unlimited growth are roots and stems. So they will grow vertically as well as sidewards. So that is what growth, and they are found in that growing regions of the plants. And the meristematic tissue means a group of cells, no? And every cell will have a shape, and they will have the same dimensions from any side, so they are isodiametric. And because when they form a group, okay, they're okay, compactly arranged without intracellular spaces. The spaces present between the cells are called what? Intracellular spaces. They are absent in meristematic tissues. And all these cells cooperate with each other, and all the cells, whatever the number it may be, all of them at a time divide, means what? They are communicated. How they are communicated? Through what? Some cytoplasmic strands which are called plasmodesmata. So the cells of the meristematic tissue are connected by plasmodesmata, and they have not thick walls, they have thin walls, and these thin walls are composed of cellulose. So you find the cellulosic walls in these meristematic cells, and the cells are they contain dense cytoplasm with prominent nucleus. Means what? A large nucleus is present here. What might be the reason for that? Because the meristematic cells always preparing themselves for cell division. So that's why you know that we call that nucleus which is big as what? Interphase nucleus. And we know that during cell division there is one phase called interphase, and that is actually a preparatory phase. And in that interface, of course, we find three subphases like what? G1, S, and G2 phases. So that's why you will find a large nucleus, so prominent nucleus will be there. These are the characteristics of meristems. And now let us discuss about the classification of the meristems. Okay, and based on the origin in life of a plant, you will find two types of meristems here: the primary meristems and secondary meristems. So the primary meristems are there right from the beginning, that is the embryo. And one point I would like to tell you, that is what is the first meristematic cell in plants? If anyone asks you this question, what is your answer? So the first meristematic cell in plants is zygote, and that zygote divides continuously and develops into an embryo, and all the cells of that embryo are meristematic. They have the capacity of cell division. But when this embryo grows into the plant, when that embryonal axis, which is having radicle and the plumule, okay, so the radicle is growing downwards and making the root system, and then these tissues will be pushed downwards as the new cells are added in upward direction in the root. And as the plumule will grow in upward direction, so the cells are pushed downwards, which will become permanent, and this meristem will go up. So during this, you will see the location of these meristems. They are perpetuating at the tips. So they are apical meristems. So when they are present in the embryo, we call them embryonic meristem. When they are present at the tips of the growing organs of the root and stem, we call them as apical meristems. And some cells retain the capacity of cell division, and they help in the growth of internodes, and they are called intercalary meristems. And in dicot stems, of course, you will find xylem and phloem in the form of a bundle, vascular bundle, And in between the xylem and phloem, you find one meristem that is called intrafascicular cambium, which is derived from apical meristem. As apical meristem is primary, so intrafascicular cambium also is primary. So these meristems, all these examples, you will find at the time of the plant when it is growing. Okay, and at the latter stage, you will find these secondary meristems. So the secondary meristems are formed at the time of secondary growth. Okay, and during secondary growth, of course, you know that in dicots, okay, already we saw this intrafascicular cambium. So between the vascular bundles, you will find medullary rays there, and those medullary rays are permanent tissues, and they undergo dedifferentiation and produce one meristem called interfascicular cambium. I hope you are understanding this point. This interfascicular cambium is not there from the beginning. It is formed at a later stage, okay, later stage at the time of secondary growth. So that's why this interfascicular cambium in dicot stems, and of course this inter and intra fascicular cambium together make vascular cambium in dicot stems. Vascular cambium in dicot stems. Now, don't forget the vascular cambium in dicot stems is not purely primary or not purely secondary. It is partly primary and partly secondary. I hope you are understanding the point. Why? Because the intra is the primary meristem and inter is secondary meristem. And both of them together making the vascular cambium in dicot stem. Okay, that's why I wrote interfascicular cambium, and here I wrote intrafascicular cambium. So the intrafascicular cambium, better let us write intrafascicular cambium of dicot stems and interfascicular cambium in dicot stems. Already I wrote here. Okay, so you can see here this is this falls under primary meristem, whereas this falls under secondary meristem. But both of them together make what? Vascular cambium. Vascular cambium, which is partly primary and partly secondary, because this is primary and this is secondary. But let us see here the next one, the next example, vascular cambium in dicot roots. So in dicot plants, even the roots will exhibit secondary growth, and at the time of secondary growth, vascular cambium is formed. But this vascular cambium is formed only because of dedifferentiation. That's why it is completely secondary. So the vascular cambium in the dicot roots is completely secondary. But vascular cambium in dicot stems is partly primary and partly secondary. Okay. And the cork cambium or phellogen is formed in both the dicot stems and roots, and that is formed only as a result of dedifferentiation. So that's why that is also purely secondary. So this is based on origin in life of a plant. So now let us discuss about the meristems based on position. So based on position, these are of three types: apical meristems, intercalary meristems, lateral meristems. So the apical meristems are present at the tips of roots and stems. As already told you, so the one that is present at the tip of the root is called root apical meristem. And the tips of the stem is called shoot apical meristem. Shoot apical meristem. This root apical meristem is abbreviated as RAM, and the shoot apical meristem is abbreviated as SAM. But of course, at the tip of the root, you will find this apical meristem, which is protected by a cap called root cap or calyptra. And the apical meristem of the shoot is protected by the leaves, primordial leaves or the young leaves, which are produced by apical meristem itself. But at the time of this production of these leaves, Okay, so it will keep some amount of meristem in the axil of the leaf, and that becomes what? Axillary bud. So now, can you tell me from where this axillary bud is originated? From the apical meristem. So that's why where you will find this shoot apical meristem. Okay, you will find it in the terminal buds, and axillary buds. And what is the function of this apical meristem? The function of apical meristems is to help the plant to grow vertically. So they help in the linear growth of the plant, linear growth, vertical growth. Okay, and the axillary bud, of course, helps in the formation of a branch. And whenever this axillary bud becomes a branch, so this axillary bud comes to the tip and becomes what? The apical bud of the branch. Okay, so like that, that will help in the growth of the plants. And the intercalary meristems will help in the internodal elongation. Okay, and especially it is present in the grasses. Okay, and in grasses it is present at the nodal regions. And generally it helps in the what? Internodal elongation. But whenever these grasses are okay, eaten by the cattle or the grazing animals, so then again from the grass the new shoots will come. This is due to the activity of intercalary meristems. Okay, so that is intercalary meristems. And lateral meristems are also called as cylindrical meristems. Cylindrical meristems, and they include okay, let us see some examples. Fascicular cambium, two. Interfascicular cambium, three. Cork cambium. This fascicular cambium is also called as intrafascicular cambium. Intrafascicular vascular cambium, or simply intrafascicular cambium. Already there we discussed about that the cambium which is present within the vascular bundle is called fascicular cambium or intrafascicular cambium. And the one which is formed between the vascular bundles is called interfascicular cambium. And the cambium that is formed in the cortical region or cortex region of the stems and roots is called cork cambium or phyllogen. And all these lateral meristems will help in what growth? Secondary growth. Secondary growth. I hope you are understanding these lateral meristems you won't find in all plants, and even in flowering plants, all plants do not show these lateral meristems. Those plants that exhibit secondary growth only will have these lateral meristems, and you know that the secondary growth is exhibited by dicots among flowering plants. But of course, if you generalize it, even gymnosperms will show secondary growth. So gymnosperms and dicots will have secondary growth. So in these plants exhibiting secondary growth, will have these lateral meristems that help in secondary growth. So this is about the meristems, and in the next video we will discuss about the permanent tissues.